Out of it. Hi, this is Miss Slitten, and this is a very teeny tiny little review session, but motivated. Are we recording? Yes, motivated. Okay, so I want to address what you. I'm in the middle of a review session. I'm not going to be able to help you. Okay.
How long is this going to last?
The whole review. Yeah.
I was going to ask what you before, but then it's okay.
Okay. All right. So I want to make sure I spend your time what you think would be most helpful to you in this chapter. So just, if there's something you want me to go over in particular, I will. But you understand all of our cells, right, have exchange, whether we're single-celled or multicellular, right? You know the difference between an open or with or without a circulatory system, okay? And then the other things I would address would be things like when we talk about that's without and this is with, and we talk about the various kinds and open and closed circulatory system. Do you know the difference?
Yes.
What's the difference between an open and a closed circulatory system? A closed circulatory system, the blood's, it's called blood, and it always stays in the blood vessels. Yeah. Yeah, and so when you talk about blood, it's always in blood vessels, and it's always going to be a closed circulatory system. Otherwise, you're talking about hemolymph, and it's in a system for part of the time, and then it's kind of oozing through the body for part of the time. The other part, we talked about the development and whether or not you had a coelom, and so you would understand when organisms use coelemic fluid, that it's moving through their body cavities. They're not keeping it enclosed within blood vessels. And so we talked a little bit about that as well. Then we went in and distinguished between arteries, veins, and capillaries. And we call little arteries arterioles, and little veins we call venules. And we know it goes, say it with me, arteries, arterioles, capillaries in the middle, venules, veins. And then we said arteries go away from the heart, veins go towards. And it doesn't matter where you start, but heart, body, heart, lungs, heart, systemic, heart, pulmonary. Good. So that just try to remind us of how we have a double pump system. We also talked about how capillaries are one cell thick, so that's the only place. Do you need the lights off? It's a glare to me. Is it a glare to you?
Oh,
It's a glare to me. I can't see anything.
That's okay.
Capillaries are one cell thick, and that's where all exchange takes place. And then we talked about, you know what I didn't review with you? I didn't talk about osmotic and hydrostatic pressure.
No, I was kind of confused about that one.
Yeah, I bet you were. So I will probably I can go over that with you today so you know, but I meant to go over that in class yesterday, but I didn't even think about it. Okay, so remind me to do that on Monday, because we don't have the quiz on Monday anyway, so what period do I have you guys?
We're all period 3.
Oh, okay. I've got to remind myself. I'll put it on the board.
You can come during period 1 and tell you.
Yes, that's what you probably should do. I'll put it. Will you put it on my board?
I don't do it.
Okay.
I have the hat on.
Put it to the left of blocks. Thanks. Okay. So fish have a single pump system. Amphibians and most reptiles have a double pump system, but there's some mixing of blood. And then reptiles, birds, and mammals, some reptiles, and birds and mammals have a double pump system, and there is no mixing of blood. Very efficient. We talked about knowing about the parts of the heart, and we looked about the muscle of the heart is myocardium, pericardium is the sac around it. We talked about the 4 chambers of the heart, and we simplified it right here. Now, the things you need to remember about the heart, okay, is you got to remember your lefts and your rights. So imagine this as being in you, and this side is always your left side, and this side is always your right side. The left side has been to the lungs, right? So the left side will always have oxygen, right? Because it's just coming back from the lungs, and it's going to get pumped out to the body when you're on the left side of the heart. And then you remember your arteries go away, veins go towards, and then you remember the word for anytime you're talking about the lungs, you're going to use the word what? Pulmonary. Good job. Okay? And so from there, you ought to be able to look at any chamber of the heart, and you would be able to label it. So for instance, this would be the what? right atrium. What would this be called? Superior vena cava, and the inferior vena cava, or posterior vena cava, and anterior vena cava. Good. Then what's this that I'm going through right there? Tri, and how do you remember that? Rat. Okay, what's this? Ventricle. It goes up and out the what? Semi-lunar valves. Good. And then we're out going this way, and we're out going this way. What are these? Yeah, which one is this one? Left pulmonary. Arteries. Arteries go away from the heart. What's this one over here?
Right pulmonary artery.
Good. And then we're off to the lungs, right? And then we're going to come back oxygenated in here, in here. This is traveling behind here. Okay. So what's this one? What are these called over here? Left pulmonary veins. And these are right pulmonary veins. Good. Now where are we? Left atrium. What is this? Bicuspid. What's this? Left ventricle. We're going up and out. Another one of, what are these called? Semilunar. And up and out the aorta. And the aorta turns, it's down here too, is also the aorta. It goes around behind the heart. Okay, feel comfy about that? All right. They are never going to ask you to trace blood through the heart. You don't have to memorize that. But if you have a working knowledge, you might be able to use that as support information in your essays. Okay, there's nothing that's inhibiting for you from talking about things like this as support, because the graders will all be aware of that.
Can I take a picture of that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, then a couple other things. We talked about systole and diastole. Systole is whenever a part of the heart is contracting, it's in systole. And whenever something's relaxing, it's in diastole. And I remember that because if it relaxes too much, you will die. Yeah. So when you take your blood pressure, it's your systolic pressure over your diastolic pressure, like 120 over 70. And that's the force in the blood. And when we take our pulse, we're feeling arterial expansion on our fingers. Okay, and what controls how fast our heart beats? Medulla oblongata. And it affects the pacemaker, which is a little bit like nervous tissue and a little bit like muscle. And so the medulla oblongata reaches down using neurons into the SA node, and then it sends a wave of depolarization across the atria. So they all, the two atria contract at the same time. Then that hits the AV node, down bundle is his, Purkinje fibers, and it makes then the ventricles contract. So it's atria, ventricles relax, atria, ventricles relax. So when I say atria contract, the ventricles are relaxing. Then when the ventricles contract, the atria are relaxing, and then they both do. Okay? And so we can measure that wave of depolarization when on the P wave. This is when the atria are in systole, and QRS is when what? Ventricles are in systole and atria are in diastole, and then the T is ventricles in diastole. Okay? And then when you have trouble, you might get this, and this is when you send the shock across the heart to get a reboot. All right? We discussed already systemic and pulmonary circuit. So your pulmonary circuit is anytime you're going to and from the lungs, you know, both sides, and the systemic circuit is everywhere else. But there are special places in the systemic circuit, like the coronary circuit, coronary arteries and veins around the heart. And then we brought up about the hepatic portal system. And the reason we brought this up is because when you eat or don't eat food, okay, but we'll start with when you eat food, and you've digested it and you absorb it, it could have a really high nutrient amount, and it could throw off the delicate osmotic balance at the capillaries that I didn't explain that I wished I had, but I will. Okay, it could throw that off. So you just immediately shunt the blood from around your intestines immediately to the liver, and then your liver will regulate it, so it always leaves slightly elevated from the liver. Even if it comes in low or if it comes in hot, it's going to leave slightly elevated, unless your liver is depleted of nutrients, right? If your liver is depleted of nutrients, then you're going to burn fat. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Oh, This is a really good graph, okay? Because when you look at, let me make this black. Okay. Here's your cross-sectional area. Where the cross-sectional area is the greatest, that is where your speed of the blood is going to be the slowest, okay? And that's because if you just took like a big mighty force river, right, it would, as you branch it out, it's going to slow down, and as you rejoin, the speed is going to increase. And so that's good because that allows for the exchange at the capillaries, yeah. But the blood is always going to move from a higher pressure force on the blood to a lower pressure. That keeps blood going in one direction, okay? We talked about what helps. We know arteries send the blood, the heart contracts, and any vessel going away from the heart is in an artery, and so it's under a lot of force due to the heart. But then it slows down, and how are we going to get that blood to come back? And so if it's coming back from our brain, gravity has a lot to do with that, right? But if it's coming back from our feet or hands, then we can get swelling, and that would be bad. So it's because of, this is the key thing right here, is that you have valves to keep the blood going in one direction. So it's not like an open tube. If I had an open tube all the way from my toes up, it would be all swollen and all huge at the bottom, which is what happens in what kind of veins? Varicose veins. So that is it. And then the muscles, skeletal muscles, push against, when they contract, push against the veins and then squirt it. Plus the breathing movements help draw it up as well. Then we looked at that, we looked at that, we looked at that, we looked at that. Okay, now. So when you look at function of blood, when you look on these, what ones seem like the obvious things on here?
Nutrient carrier.
Okay, nutrient carrier. What else seems obvious?
Metabolic rate.
Yeah, you know it's gonna, and those are gonna head to your kidney, right? Oftentimes, or your lungs, right? Because I'm exhaling CO2. Okay, what else? Transport of all these things. Doesn't that seem right? Yeah. Okay, and then respiration, when we think about like gases, blood gases, but some of the times people don't think about this, is it regulates the pH, because it controls how many hydrogen ions that you have, and and that's going to be in conjunction with your kidneys. Body temperature, right? Because you know whether you dilate or constrict your blood vessels, right? Whether you let the blood go to your extremities or not. Maintains water content of cells, because any fluid in your capillaries can go out and be tissue fluid due to the thing I hadn't explained to you yet. Okay, and then it's carrying your white blood cells, obviously a reservoir, and then look that up. Look it up. Google it. HAEMO stasis. HAEMO stasis.
Stopping of a flow of blood.
What does that mean? Blood clot. There you go. Now, I have a way for you to learn this. This last part about plasma. I think I'm gonna just do this in class. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, because I want everybody to learn that. So I need to remember to start at slide. Help me now. 57. Okay, good job, you guys. Way to be strong. Where are the rest of you? We're super sad. Okay, have a good weekend. Eat some toast.
James, why did you come to the review?
Yeah, why? Why? There's tears here.